What's going on, guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. YouTube. I have been wanting to get on here and talk to you motherfuckers for so long. And I always think about it and I plan it, but then I never follow through. And I gotta get this right, I gotta get that right, I gotta have the microphones, I gotta have the right camera. I just want to build an audience with you motherfuckers. If you vibe with my shit, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know down below what I can do to make this shit better. But I think the world is lacking or missing some authenticity nowadays. And figured I correlated with one of like the major topics in my life right now, and her name is Tren, right? I've run it a couple times. I want to actually just make a video. I just want to educate people, and I love to educate myself. Sometimes it's very hard to find good advice. It's very hard to find unbiased, honest advice. And I want to try and do that without glorifying what I do, right? Just want to educate you guys. You can know, consider me your guinea pig. Go watch me and see what happens. Maybe down the road I'll let you guys recommend what I can try. But yeah, so recently decided we're gonna run some Tren again. And I want to educate people on it because right now, half of the shit that I see on my social media, especially about steroids, especially about Tren in particular. I mean, it makes sense, you know. The strongest compound will get the strongest or the largest amount of attention, right? But yeah, it doesn't do it justice when people don't show both sides of it and just let other people make an informed decision for themselves. So thank God I'm very unbiased. I just try and look at things neutrally. If the pros outweigh the cons, then I go for it. And sometimes the pros outweighing the cons isn't always in numbers. Sometimes it's in quality. Sometimes something can have 20 cons and only 5 positives, but those 5 positives outweigh all 20. Feel me? I think that makes sense. So I consider myself lucky. I'm able to look at things unbiased, but I want to create a space where we can not only educate each other, but let adults be adults. Let them make their own informed decisions for themselves. What the fuck was that? Just ghosting this bitch. Yeah, just let adults make their own informed decisions for themselves. And when it comes to Tren, this is one that in particular that like, wow, bro, the fact that there's not solid information out there is kind of scary, because we live in the age of information, or the age of disinformation, like my friend says. But all you see is like these memes and these jokes, and people haphazardly glorifying it, you know? And you see all these kids talking about that they're on it. Are they actually? I hope not. I really hope not, because it's such a strong compound. I'll put you guys on some game, a little history lesson real quick. Most drugs, whether for research purposes or for actual medical purposes, some which are banned now, most drugs were created because they had, or were thought to have had, some kind of medicinal property at some point, right? i.e., it gets discovered, it gets created, they put it out into the market, or they run trials on it. If, like I said, if the pros outweigh the cons, then it is put on the market. Sometimes it is prematurely put on the market. I think Tren was one of those. It was actually put on the market I think back in the 60s, the 70s, but because Tren, and this is kind of one of the pros, has such a strong affinity when it comes to nutrition, nutrition partitioning, where essentially your body becomes a furnace for fat, bro. Like, and it becomes a safe haven for muscle. When you're on Tren, one of the things that it actually does, again, looking at it just for what it is, one of the things that it actually does, which is why I think it was created and why it did reach the market at one point, is because, again, it has such an affinity to nutrition partitioning. It turns your body into a furnace. Don't mind me, guys. When I look around or when you see me just staring off, you can still watch me, but I don't like watching myself sometimes. Yeah, it becomes this safe haven for muscle, because what it does is, I can't remember exactly. Another thing you guys will realize, I'm always going to try and do videos without notes. I'm going to try and go off just my own knowledge, and then the comment section can correct me if I'm wrong, or you guys can praise me for being a genius. Cool? I'll correct myself down the road if I ever realize I was wrong about something. But yeah, it becomes a safe haven for muscle itself. I don't know if it completely stops the production. I don't think it could stop the production, but it's a cortisol inhibitor. So your body essentially can't use cortisol when on Tren, which is kind of ironic because it makes you very anxious and kind of on edge, right? It's crazy. But like most great things in life, aren't they just fucking ironic? Like bitches. Tren. Yeah, which also makes the compound very versatile, which most steroids honestly are. I think it's the same. I think people don't realize that, you know, they like to say that, oh, steroids, this one's versatile, or this one's best for this, or this one's best for that. You could say the same thing about certain forms of training, but ultimately how your body reacts, how it adapts, how it grows, or stays the same, is always going to be boiled down to your diet. And no matter what kind of training you do, whether you do high intensity training, if you eat properly, you're going to perform better. If you eat like shit, maybe you'll get strong, you know, because you're just consuming so much food. But your stamina, your reaction time, the way you look, it's just not going to be the same. So I think steroids in and of itself, when people say that they're versatile, they're only good for this or that, I think it's either because they've only particularly used that during that phase of their journey, or because they haven't experimented with other stuff on the opposite end, if that makes sense. You know, yeah, Tren is versatile, because you know why people think it's versatile? Because it's arguably a fun compound. It feels really good, especially if you learn how to mitigate the side effects and not become a walking side effect. It feels really good. It's very fun. Therefore, people use it during bulks and during cuts. And holy shit, lo and behold, you find out that it's fun. Duh. But like all steroids, I find that all of them are versatile. It all ultimately always boils down to your diet, how your body's going to adapt or progress, right? And because Tren is fun, people think it's versatile because they've used it both during a bulk and during a cut. But in all actuality, it can be used either or, because it's so great at burning fat that you can use it during a bulk and it's going to keep you leaner than you normally would get, but you're also going to gain muscle, which you would have regardless on the bulk, but now you're a furnace, you know, so you're staying leaner than you normally would during your bulk. Or you can use it during your cut, because like I said, it just completely wipes out cortisol, or at least the catabolic effects of cortisol. Maybe not the mental effects. I don't know, I just don't get how it completely wipes it out, or how it could, being that, again, it makes you so on edge and so uncomfortable sometimes. But yeah, or you could use it during your fat loss, because again, it just wipes cortisol out or stops your body's physical response to it, and you could be on a no carb diet, accidentally be on low fats, not consuming enough protein. Like you could just overall be in a low nutrient space, and your body will just save whatever muscles on your frame. It'll just keep it. It'll keep it, and somehow to make it feel more full, and somehow to make it feel stronger. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's probably why people think it's versatile. I find every compound I've found it to be versatile because I've used them in both. I've used them during the bulk part of that year and during the cutting part of that year. Because to me, if I'm going to experiment with a particular hormone, I'm gonna use it that entire year. I'm gonna cycle it a few times throughout the year, you know? Because it only makes sense, like, especially if you're using something where your body doesn't naturally produce it. If you're using a 19 nandrolone or a 19 nor compound, I don't want to constantly be influxing new shit into my system. I'd rather just pick, one or two or three and fuck with that for the year. You guys should try it. I think it also helps with just overall keeping the build that you create while you're on a cycle. But that's neither here nor there. So it is versatile, like people say. I do like it for that. Yeah, very muscle sparing. That's why I think it was on the market. Your strength is gonna go through the fucking roof, bro. And your muscles and your dick, because you're gonna wanna fuck everything that move. You're gonna wanna pick up everything heavy that you see. It turns you into a physical specimen of a man. And I'm always gonna refer to this particular conversation, or probably most steroid conversations, to just us men. And that's not me being sexist. It's because I love you women. I absolutely love you bitches. As crazy as that drive me. But I don't think that a woman should ever, under any circumstances, be taking a testosterone derivative steroid. Just no. Especially one like Tren that we're talking about right now, because here's another little unbiased fun fact. Well, I guess it can be biased depending on who you ask. Tren, in and of itself, when studied, the few times that it's been studied, has been found to have a 5-time affinity to to being androgenic and to being anabolic. Meaning, it has a 5-to-1 ratio to testosterone. So the same dose of testosterone, instead taken as Tren, is going to have a 5 times stronger response in your body, anabolically and androgenically. So that's why I say women, no, because the fact that it does have such a strong affinity to the androgen receptors, it's going to deepen your voice as a man or a woman. It's going to cause hair loss as a man or a woman. It's going to cause masculinization of the face and the rest of the body. If you're a man or a woman, it's gonna make your little thing down there. It's a little bit bigger, whether you're a man or a woman. And ladies, from a guy's perspective, I like a tiny clit. Right? It's funner to play with and like. Just saying. So I would never recommend a woman to ever touch that shit. Or most steroids, to be honest with you. You want to find the one with the least amount of an androgenic response. Women, ladies, you're going to want to find the one with the least androgenic response, not anabolic. Anabolic is fine. You want to get stronger, you want to get bigger, more power to you. I love me a muscle mommy. I love me a fucking muscle mommy. But when you're looking into compounds, and I'll discuss some for women down the road. I don't like to, because I'm not a woman. I can't speak for how it makes you feel, how it may alter the way you think or feel or perceive yourself as a woman. I can say it as a man, what these compounds do to me, but I don't know. So I've never felt comfortable kind of either coaching women when it comes to compounds or just overall giving advice on it. I hate when women ask me about that shit. But I can always give a very unbiased response. Okay, are there any other pros to the Tren? We talked about the muscle sparing effects. Oh, one of my favorites, just real quick. I'll try not to go off on a tangent with this one. The confidence boost, the way that you're going to feel as a man. You're not gonna feel like a man anymore, papa. You're gonna feel like you created men. You're going to look at everybody else like you created them. Literally. You're just gonna feel on top of the fucking world. And this, like most other things with Tren, changes over time. The longer you're into the cycle, these things all change. All of them. Obviously, not the physical, not what it does. Well, kind of, no, never mind. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah. All these things change the longer you're on Tren. All of them almost reverse in on themselves. I think because it is such a strong fucking compound. So, the longer you're into that cycle, especially if you're at you're always going to be super physiological on Tren because, well, it's not a natural compound. You're always going to be super physiological, but as you push higher doses, again, everything almost like reverses in on itself because it's such a strong compound. So that confidence that you get for the first half of the cycle, which tends to kind of taper for a couple of weeks, and then sometimes, depending on how high of a dose you're running, can have a massive fucking downhill decline, bro. It's like a motherfucking roller coaster. But you've been looking back the whole time. You didn't realize the drop is about to come, bro. But again, that kind of stuff can be mitigated. Be mindful, be conscious of yourself. But it can reverse in on itself. Your best strategy on Tren, when you're feeling yourself, because you can always tell when you have something in your system, you know what I mean? At least I can. Like, if you're conscious enough and you're constantly paying attention to yourself, your physical, your psyche, you're always gonna notice when there's something altering the way that you function or the way that you think. You're always going to be conscious of that. You're always going to feel that, especially the more intellectual you become and the more that you know what can happen. You'll be like, oh shit, this is happening to me. This wasn't happening to me before. What have I added? Oh, Tren. But yeah, now, so it's, it's like also being conscious of, well, I guess if you start to feel anxious, there's not really much you can do about it because anxiety makes everything illogical and that just goes right out the window. So no matter how much logic you throw at it, you're still gonna get anxious if you're getting anxious. Fuck. Trust me. Your boy suffers from some anxiety. And I know the Tren don't help. But here's another thing is that I find, again, everything can be mitigated. You can always do everything in it. There's most things in this life, there's always a way to do it safer. Even if it's already dangerous, there are ways for you to mitigate your risk, right? And Tren is one of those things because it could also take you the fuck out, my nigga. But one of the strongest, one of the best ways for you to mitigate any kind of side effects on Tren, or just most steroids or drugs, to be honest with you, pretty much every drug I've ever taken, yeah, there's always some way to mitigate the risk. But yeah, your safest bet to mitigate side effects when you're on Tren, psychologically or physically, is going to be stay on top of your sleep, bro. Stay on top of your sleep and stay on top of your hydration, because you're gonna be sweating, you're gonna be hot, you're gonna feel like a furnace. And for some fucking reason, maybe because also maybe you've reached peak serum concentration, especially because anybody who knows me or any man who's ever gotten advice from me, you know that I will always recommend Tren Ace. I will never recommend the longer esters, because again, these side effects can be very brutal, they can be very tough, they can come on very quick, and you don't want your body to be saturated with a drug for the next fucking month that is causing you all these negative side effects. But if you stay on top of your sleep, stay on top of your hydration. And I was gonna say, maybe it's because your body reaches peak serum concentration because you're taking a very short ester of a drug. So by the time that you hit the nighttime, I always recommend pinning your Tren, especially first thing in the morning. You know, because who doesn't like to go pin first thing in the fucking morning when you wake up? You're drawing a syringe while you're taking a piss. You fucking stick it in there. Ha! Tren cough. Who doesn't love that shit, huh? We're some sick motherfuckers. But I always recommend pinning it first thing in the morning, so that by, you know, by the nighttime, your body's a little bit more acclimated to having this substance running through it. Because it's kind of like, I feel like most drugs, I think of them like a high. Some of them are a physical high, not a mental high, but like a physical high, it's just like when you eat an edible. That first hour when it hits, it feels intense because everything's changed. You'll try to figure out if this is safe or not. I think your body does the same thing. So by the nighttime, your body's more like, okay, this Tren's not gonna kill me right now. But, like I said, your body does turn into a furnace. And one of the downsides is Tren sweats, right? I'm just gonna mix in the pros and the cons all together, because again, this is supposed to be an unbiased video, right? And honestly, I'm just talking to you motherfuckers, man. I've always wanted to have a YouTube channel like this. This is how I'm gonna make it. Whoever don't like it, dip. I just want to be able to talk to my audience. But anyway, we just mentioned the Tren cough, which we mentioned waking up in the morning, which can happen. Sometimes, I don't know if it's because it is such a strong compound. Other steroids can cause this, but it's to such a lesser extent than Tren that it doesn't cause the same wild reaction. There's times when I've pinned other compounds outside of testosterone that I've nicked a blood vessel, and I feel a slight tingle, like, in my chest and my lungs. I can almost taste the compound itself. Like I could taste the oil. Maybe it's the same thing with Tren, but it's so toxic that when it does make its way through your lungs, it's just like burning that shit. That's why you cough like that. It's kind of what it feels like. But that can also be mitigated. I find that if I mix the solution with testosterone, what I'll do is I'll draw half of the Tren, half of my test, half of the Tren, half of my test. So I'm kind of diluting it as I go along. And I try and mostly stick to subcutaneous. But I just started doing that. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm trying to assess if it feels the same as injecting it intramuscularly. Like, is it doing the same thing to my body? Feeling wise, I know physically it is, but I'm wondering if like feeling wise, because sometimes I can feel the stuff that I take. When I do it subcutaneously, it doesn't hit the same. Or maybe because I'm doing smaller, more frequent shots, I probably feel more normal, whatever. But yeah, that's one way that you can mitigate the cough. Try and dilute it with whatever other compound you're taking and just pin very slow. Be very conscious of where you pin. You can aspirate, there's no need to. But even then, I've had times where I get the cough and no blood came out when I pulled the needle out, so I didn't expect to get it, but who knows what's going on in there, right? Um, yeah, that's when you initially pin. Like I said, by the nighttime, I don't know if it's because it reaches peak serum concentration, but especially with ACE, it's a bit tougher because you have more of a concentration of the drug by the end of the day, if that makes sense. When you have one that's breaking off into half-lives over the course of a couple of weeks, it's not gonna smack you all at once. You're gonna reach that peak serum concentration a little bit slower. So it's not as intense as it is with acetate, because with acetate, bro, after the first couple of nights of you pinning that shit, your sleep is gonna feel fogged. Thank God that I have a psychiatrist that I go to that he gives me sleeping medication, but oh my God. And that's the crazy thing about Tren is you feel so good throughout the day, you feel so on top of the world that you can almost get away with sleeping less, you know? But I find that if you want to be more stable mentally, if you want to be more dialed in and really reap the benefits of the Tren, and not just for like a couple of weeks, you know, I'm talking like a couple of months. Yeah, you want to stay on top of your sleep, bro, because a lack of sleep can cause a cascade of different side effects or just long-term effects. Like you can have a severe increase in plaque buildup. And for this, I recommend supplementing with melatonin, because Tren seems to decrease the melatonin in your system, but if you're supplementing with it, you're kind of mitigating it and you're sleeping a little bit better. But you can get severe plaque buildup if you're not on top of your sleep. Extreme irritability. You gotta think about it. You're not recovering the same. You may feel like it on the Tren, but you're gonna realize like how fucking sleep deprived you are when you come off. Stay on top of it while you're on cycle. Already have something on hand that you know you're gonna use that works well for you and it's gonna help you sleep. Let's see. Another one that switches, your appetite. Another unbiased side effect. The first like month when you're on it, if you're doing a moderate to low dose, you're gonna wanna eat everything, bro. You're gonna wanna eat everything, not just your girl. Not just your girl. You're gonna wanna eat fucking everything you see. Your appetite's gonna go through the roof. But again, another one that seems to plateau a little bit halfway throughout the cycle and then kind of decrease. Again, that's kind of mitigated if you're sleeping right, if you're eating clean. Again, just sleeping right seems to mitigate pretty much most of the side effects on the Tren, which is kind of makes it debatable. Is it that toxic of a compound, or is it just the lack of sleep that gives you all those side effects, you know? But and I think the last one that I had in mind to share with you guys is us as men. You'll notice it the first few nights that you get the Tren sweats, right? You're gonna wake up drenched in sweat. Hope you're conscious of like how you smell and shit like that. I hope you pay attention to yourself. But the first few nights you'll be able to tell. You're gonna wake up drenched in your sweat and you're gonna realize that your sweat after a couple of nights start to smell different. Like, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. And it's a smell where if you can get rid of it, you would. If you can't, it's like, you know, you're indifferent, it's not bothering you. But it's not good either. And every woman that I've been with while running Tren always notices that. They always say that. They always, even without me telling them like, hey, pay attention to this, let me know if you... I always leave that one out because I always want to know, like, yo, is it just me? Nope, they've all said it. And they all say the same exact thing. It's not bad, but it's not good either. It's just a strange smell. Again, mitigated by diet, just drinking enough fluids, and not being a disgusting fuck. But let's run down the list really quick. I'm gonna let you guys go because I know it's already going on 30 minutes that I've been fucking rambling to you guys. Hopefully I covered enough. Tried to be as unbiased as possible. You know, every time that I felt like I was kind of promoting it a little bit, I always try to toss a negative in there to match it, you know. If you guys are smart, you realize that a lot of those negatives actually outweigh the positive, because you could just be gone if you run the wrong trend cycle. You know, it has a much higher risk than most steroids, I'll tell you that much. But let's run down them real quick. Pros: cortisol drop, the confidence boost, elevated sex drive. Let's see, just overall fat burning machine, muscle safe haven. I mean, shit, you're gonna gain muscle after the third or fourth week. You're just gonna wake up and be a little bit bigger and fuller every day. And it's a dense weight. It's not water weight. It doesn't feel like water weight. It's a dense weight. And then downsides, I mean, the worst one of all, the plaque buildup. It'll fucking kill you. The lack of sleep, the intense sweats, the psychological anxiety it can cause. I'm not sure if I went too in depth with that one, but towards the end or the mid or the end of your cycle, especially if you're not sleeping right, you will just be an anxious, irritable fuck, bro. An anxious, irritable fuck. Like, you're gonna think every girl that you're dating, or whatever girl that you're dating, is cheating on you. You're gonna think that people are talking behind your back. You're gonna kill everybody. Did I say that? But yeah, just no bueno, no bueno. Let's see. Oh, so the plaque buildup, the lack of sleep, the anxiety. Very, very hard time bouncing back, even if you PCT properly. Decreased stamina. I didn't go too in depth with that one, but this won't be my own video about Tren. Very decreased stamina, especially towards the late third of your cycle. Yeah, the paranoia. I think that's about. Well, it's not fair. Those cons outweigh the fuck out of any of those benefits. Just understand, guys, I don't recommend anything to anyone. Personally, I find pharmacology I find pharmacology so fascinating. So fascinating. And you have to take a lot of these medical studies, and I mean, shit, I find that anecdotal studies seem to be a lot more accurate nowadays thanks to the internet. But everything, you have to take it with a grain of salt. You have to educate yourself. You have to be very conscious, be very focused. Don't do things half-assed, especially when it comes to stuff like steroids. Sorry, I just heard something like ring. I'm like, what the fuck was that? No idea. That made me lose my train of thought. No, sorry, I remember. I find pharmacology simply fascinating, right? A lot of these medical studies, they are interpreted the wrong way. People don't take into account dosages, they don't take into account environment, they don't take into account a lot of the variables that go into the study of a lot of these chemicals and compounds and hormones that we have created as human beings, you know? So I find it fascinating. And when I experiment, I watch a lot of people like myself, which is why I've decided to get into this space. I watch a lot of people like myself. I read a lot of studies that are speaking in the same way that I'm trying to convey this to you guys in a very unbiased manner, and just give you the facts. I give you the information. You do with it what you will. And also understanding that there's nuances to everything. Like a lot of these side effects, a lot of these things that can happen to you, they're all dose dependent. I mean, the muscle building or the anti-catabolic effect of Tren has been recorded and as low as 5 milligrams per day. 5 milligrams per day. That's That's, if you're doing it every day, but let's say you're doing it every day at 10 milligrams. What's that, 30, 40 milligrams a week? Take into account dosaging, you know? I keep losing my train of thought, bro. It's like 4 in the morning. I need to fucking go to sleep. But, yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys specifically want to know about certain things. I find myself a fucking book of knowledge, and I try to share as much as possible. Sometimes we can look over or overlook certain things. Sometimes in my rambling and my ADHD mind, I think sometimes I skip over some of the nuances and the smaller details in certain things. So if you guys could help me catch it, simply ask me about it, I'd be more than happy to fucking share. All right, I look forward to this. I look forward to having friends that I could speak to and educate on as much of a daily basis as possible. I'm not gonna promise I'm recording for you motherfuckers every day, but we'll try. All right. Love you, niggas. Peace.